and co-president of DDC here, Hyeon Kim. I'm a senior at SAIC. I'm introducing Ben Conway, COO of VNTANA. Nice. Please greet.
All right. Ready to go? Okay, great. Hey, everyone. I'm Ben. So I'll start with giving you some background on myself, and then I've got some questions for you. I don't know if this mic's necessary or not, but I'll use it because it's here. So I'm the co-founder of VNTANA. I've been working in 3D mixed reality space close to 12 years now. The company started out actually doing like location-based mixed reality experiences. Really, it was holograms. Like, if anyone ever hear about like the Tupac hologram at Coachella? This is like, I'm gonna be so freaking old. It was like very cool at the time. Anyway, we did a lot of location-based stuff. A lot of that required us to build interactive experiences in game engines like Unity. And what would happen is we do an activation for someone like Lexus or Nike or DJI, the drone company, and we'd need 3D versions of those products to be able to actually build the experience. But what they would give us is, first it would take the companies forever to find the 3D files, and then when they'd send it to us, we'd get like full-blown CAD assemblies. So like for DJI, the drone company, they literally mailed us a 2 terabyte hard drive from China that had all of the plans on how to build a drone, which is not what you want in your Unity-based game engine experience. And so that problem kind of kept recurring of these files are too big, no one knows where they are, and that kind of led us to build VNTANA, which is a 3D digital asset management system. So within VNTANA, we manage, optimize, and convert 3D files. I'm not going to go into the whole pitch on that right now, but like I just wanted to give you some background on kind of like who I am and what my experience has been. By show of hands, how many people are actually like working in 3D programs today? Pretty much everyone. What kind of programs are you guys working in generally? Blender, okay. Unity. Anyone?
I was using Maya, but I don't know if Maya is getting outdated nowadays.
It's not getting a lot of love from Autodesk. I will tell you that. Rhino, yeah, and like honestly, the answer is it's like a super blend. In the what we're encountering with designers that we work with, you need to be versed in a number of these different tool sets. But I just want to get a sense when I'm talking about this stuff, how deep can we go technically versus not. All right, so I'm going to give like a short overview of kind of like the company and some of the stuff that I'm seeing right now. The title was, I don't know, Revolutionizing Customer Engagement Through 3D. I don't know if it's actually revolutionary, but like I really am just here to be a resource for you all. So if you've got questions, like just interrupt. It's totally fine. We'll do Q&A. I think she's got some questions. So here we go. So some of this is definitely like a little bit more pitch decky that we'll present to investors and other like leadership at some of the companies we work with. But it's true. The internet has gone spatial. I feel like I've been saying this for a number of years and I've been wrong for a number of years, but it feels kind of like with Apple Vision Pro, we're actually reaching that place where people are starting to, it's starting to become I wouldn't say it's starting to become the default, but that is insight of like, hey, this is important. We need to have a strategy around 3D. We'll talk about some stuff that Google's doing, talk about some stuff that's Amazon doing, talk about the stuff that Meta is not doing. But 3D is important, and it's used to be that it was just in like traditionally like aerospace and kind of industrial engineering where they really needed a lot of precision. They started using the CAD programs, but like we do a lot in retail, like footwear, apparel, like consumer packaged goods. Like none of them had been touching 3D until, I don't know, probably like the last 10 years or so. And we're starting to see almost every vertical using 3D in some way. And so it's just really an exciting time for that. So this is like, I think this is important to understand because when you're in 3D, like one of the things, it's visual, right? And it's fun to do and it's fun to build these experiences or create these models or these products. But the way that the leaders of these brands are thinking about it is a little bit different. Let me just jump ahead real quick to show you. So we work with a lot of customers that are on the, like in the retail side. Puma manages all their 3D assets with us. Kohler, based out of Wisconsin, manages all their stuff with us. Michael Kors, everything for Adidas footwear try-on runs through our software platform. So we've been working in the retail space for a while. So that's like a little bit heavily of my experience and what that view is. But when you think about it, you'd be thinking like, oh, cool, like they're going to do virtual try-on for footwear. Like that's why they're getting into 3D. They can create all these beautiful renders and stuff like that. And like that's actually not why. That's not why they are getting into it. The reason that apparel and a lot of these consumer products companies get into 3D is because they're actually trying to get to market faster, make decisions faster, reduce the number of physical samples. They'll tell you it's about sustainability. Maybe. It results in sustainable practices, but ultimately it saves them a ton of money if they do it right. And so that's the lens they're looking at it. In some cases, they're just like, they'll view it completely separately. There are very few companies where there's a unified 3D strategy and 3D budget. So like, while I was saying earlier, hey, it's coming in all these places, in reality, e-commerce is managing their own thing with their own initiatives through the view of e-commerce, and then design and development is a completely different department with different budgets, and they may never speak to each other, even if they're both relying on 3D assets. So that's a big deal. So that's kind of like the left side of this slide, and then the right slide is increasing conversions, a better need for training. We're seeing that is like one of the best use cases for VR that has emerged. Is a lot of companies are investing a ton in XR training. And so that is kind of why companies are getting into 3D. And now I'm going to talk about like the problems that we solve specifically. So one of the biggest problems is that all of these design programs, like if you export an FBX from Maya and you export an FBX from 3ds Max, you might get two wildly different FBX files that will not work in the program that you're looking to make it work. And that's just absurd. So that's why there's been things like GLTF, and you're probably hearing more about USD if you're looking into Omniverse or things like that. And I can talk about that a little bit if you want to. But basically, none of these programs are exporting files the way that they need to be exported, or maybe they are in the right format, but they're super large. They're really inefficient. Like almost all of the programs that are used today were never actually intended for use in like these mixed reality type of experiences. They weren't really meant for game engines. So there needs to be some conversion there. They're either meant for generating renders so you can get like an understanding of the product, or actually manufacturing something. But the thought wasn't about, oh, I'm going to want to use this asset in Unreal Engine, and then I'm going to want to put it on my e-commerce site. Like that wasn't the way they were built. And so they're just kind of really far behind. And the other thing is, we'll talk about it. They are not unified. Everything you're seeing right here, everyone's just been like, we're just going to do it our own way. And so that is really kind of a big challenge for brands, and also just a challenge working in the 3D space. Like Amazon has their own web viewer, so does Best Buy, and they should all be standardized. They could all be built on 3JS or Babylon. There's like specifications for GLTF, but then they might just have varied levels of adoption. So Amazon might say like, we'll support the spec up to here, and then we'll just stop. And so that means that your model that should work won't in that program. And it's really kind of a big problem for the industry as a whole, and for adoption. It's slowed down adoption a lot, because you've got some brands that have like maybe made the investment in 3D, and they're like, cool, we're going to put this on Amazon. And then they go and want to do on Best Buy, and then they realize they've got to rework the asset, and then they've got to go pay someone else to go rework that asset. So what we've tried to do is kind of solve that with automation. So we are a 3D digital asset management system, but really the core technology is we've built this optimization engine that can automatically reduce 3D file sizes by up to 99% while still maintaining super high visual fidelity. We've built conversion tools on top of that, and then we have APIs to allow you to distribute that content wherever it is that you might want to distribute it. So the goal is they're uploading a single high resolution file, and they're able to use that downstream in lots of different use cases. I already kind of walked through some of the customers. And I want to show you some of the examples. So like I'm sure you guys have seen a bunch of stuff with Apple Vision Pro. But this is what's like, I think, one of the big game changers. So this is some medical cart. But this is our viewer that's hosted on the VNTANA platform. And she's just able to pull this down directly into her environment. And I'm sure you've seen stuff like this. I'm sure you guys have seen some AR, but what's really different is WebXR support. So now that these devices are supporting WebXR, if you have our viewer embedded anywhere, and this is anyone also who's going to add WebXR support, it's going to work on desktop, mobile, MetaQuest 3, Magic Leap, Apple Vision Pro. So all of a sudden now the barrier for like allowing someone to interact with a 3D version of your product has just dropped super dramatically, in the same way that like right now, if you scan a QR code or you want to view a product that we're hosting on our platform in AR, it knows whether you're using an Android or an Apple device. If you're using Apple, it gives you a USDZ file. If you're using Android, it gives you a GLB. And so having WebXR support, I think, is going to open things up a lot. I've also seen, and I've got like another video with apparel, having context of like the lighting of the actual environment, and it just makes the products look so much more realistic than when they're just on a flat interactive like 3D viewer that's on the web. Like the adoption for web just really hasn't been there. It's been capable for a long time, but how many people are like, what percentage of sites do you go to that actually have a 3D web viewer on there? It's really not that high, and I'm going to show you some examples of kind of these different implementations and where we're at on things. So some of these are going to sound, I just reuse slides that I have from other things. So, but this is this is an example from Amazon. So we're actually the first company to have access to Amazon's API to publish 3D directly to Amazon. They've started out with virtual try-on for footwear. They've now expanded to a bunch of other categories. I'm really excited about it. The reason I'm so excited about this, and also I'll talk about Google, and again, this is getting into like thinking about how companies think about adopting these technologies. So one of the barriers for 3D getting adopted on e-commerce sites is that when COVID happened, a lot of brands started becoming more direct to consumer than they were selling a lot more via retail channels, and now all of a sudden they're selling a lot more via e-commerce. So e-commerce teams got completely buried, and e-commerce teams have a bunch of stuff they can look at. They can look at pop-ups. They can look at different email campaigns. They can look at the placement of images on the site. There's a lot of different technologies that they're looking at implementing that are just like basic of like, how can I just like optimize this site to get people to buy as much as possible? And when you throw something like 3D on there, you're like, well, this is cool as shit. Yeah, they're definitely going to do this. And in actuality, they're like, we got to figure out how we redesign this whole thing. And is it the first image they see? Is it not the first image? And what if the image doesn't look exactly like my photo? And like, it's this cascade of kind of thoughts that can prevent all but the most ambitious from moving forward, because there's this whole other set of options that they could be looking at doing that might still help them hit their metrics, which is, how do I reduce returns? How do I get more people to buy stuff when they land on my site? And so why it's so exciting with Amazon and Google is like, it's already predefined formats. They don't get to pick. The Amazon says, I need these images from you. If you pay a little bit more for this premium Amazon listing, then you can also have video. Here's the format. This is what it should look like. There is some variation on what you want to put in that video, but essentially it's just a form of media you're going to upload. And the same thing with Google and search. So now that they're adding 3D, it's a no-brainer, because all they're saying is just give us this 3D model in these formats. That's it. You don't get to control what the experiences we do, but it removes that thinking. It removes that thinking from the executive or whoever's in charge of this of going, how do we implement it? What questions do we have? And instead, it's kind of a trusted partner. And when they see the results here, it's going to cause them to want to invest a lot more in other places. Does that make sense? So this is an example of a product on Amazon. This is one of our customers. So it's only on the mobile app that they're allowing it right now. And it's basically viewing your space. So AR. with some details. And I actually thought they did a pretty good job of the way they did this. They've got some measure tools. They've got some other things. So Amazon's been pretty slow on the uptake, I would say, but we're now reaching the place where we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think it's a compelling enough experience. Google has added 3D to search, specifically on shopping. They'll be doing more, rolling out more categories. Again, footwear is one of the main categories that these big platforms have started with. It's not try-on. It is literally just an interactive 3D model, but they are seeing 6% doesn't sound like a lot, but 6% is an increase. 6% is a lot when you consider the billions and billions of dollars that are spent on Google. It's very meaningful result for them. So hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of this later this year. But again, the reason I'm so excited is you can see they've just got their carousel of images. This is what Google wants. And now here's one more. It's a 3D model that you're going to upload. I've got I'm going to skip over these case studies I have, and instead I'm going to show you some stuff on the site. So this is our platform, in case you're curious. So we built this web viewer from the ground up. You can see this was a 2.1 million poly file down to 75,000, 216 megabytes down to 6.3, and the thing still looks pretty damn good. So what I wanted to talk about, though, since it's commerce, is kind of what we are seeing. So this is another example of a web viewer implemented in e-com. But what we're finding is that people are a lot more interested in doing something like this because it's a guided experience for the consumer. So here, this is a technical boot. I actually think I own this pair of boots. And so they want to guide the customer. I can still interact with the 3D model and I can still zoom in, but I can tell a story a little bit more with it in a really kind of simplistic way. And this is where I think the industry is heading more generally. Like I thought we kind of just skipped over this. Let's everyone embed a 3D viewer and let's everyone like view it in your space. And there's been some realization that we need to guide the customer a little bit more to show them what they need to learn rather than having to have them discover that for themselves. So that's one of the examples. And then, so Home Depot has been doing stuff with 3D. They're obviously a very large retailer. But the other thing, what we're finding, and I think this is important for you all to know because you guys will be introduced to a lot of the cutting edge of like, look at all this great stuff that's happening. Like, this is a big deal for them. This is just it. You just spin it. It just took images. They just take images in their viewer from like a few different angles. We turn it around. There is nothing new or groundbreaking about this. But Titus Grill, the customer here, who's super excited about it. And Home Depot's super excited about it. So like we still live in a world where this is like, whoa, but it's not. So there's this big gap between kind of like the brands and like some of these retail platforms and then like what's happening here and what's happening in people who are just more involved in the space. I think we'll hopefully see it close, but I think it's going to be like, it's just going to be, I think it's going to result in some weird experiences because we're going to like just leap over certain things to this whole other, like there might be before there's actually like ubiquitous 3D web viewers and AR on websites, we might see everyone in some super immersive metaverse retail experience. I don't know. Like it's very strange what is getting adopted, what is getting money and what is not. Like all the luxury brands have done a lot with like the metaverse style stuff. They must be seeing some return on it, but it's all very like bespoke. It's all very agency driven. Best Buy also supporting 3D. They have a little bit more robust implementation of it. So earbuds, cool. And then you can scan the QR code right here. You'll see it in your space. But again, this is Best Buy's own web viewer, which is different than the viewer that is rendering these things on Amazon. And they have different specs for file sizes and all that sort of stuff. And the final example I wanted to show was just Kohler, another customer. This is how they've chosen to implement it. And then it's view in your space. So it's like kind of standard stuff that you would expect to see, but years, decades to get to this level of kind of progress with this sort of stuff. So I think 2024 is going to be a good year for it, though. I think a lot of that will be driven via what's happening with Amazon and Google. I haven't talked about Meta a lot with this. Meta's commerce strategy has been like super all over the place. It's just not like the biggest moneymaker for them. Ads are what matter. And so they've tried stuff like they had 3D on Instagram for a minute in ads and like a specific shopping ads. And then there was also like Instagram shops where brands could have their own shop, and they had 3D and AR there, but they kill it, they turn it on, they kill it, they turn it on. They're investing billions in Reality Lab. There's a lot of turnover at that place. I can tell you that. We've done quite a bit of work with them. There's a lot of turnover. So I don't know what's actually going to come out of there, but those are kind of like, I'd say NVIDIA, Amazon, Google, Meta are the people that are at the forefront in terms of what you will actually see from a technology perspective, because they have just really wide reach